When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, everyone, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. We have several listeners that are out of the country, and I'm excited to have today's episode. As always, I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and you are listening to Take the Leap. And today we're going to dive into the power of HR presence. It's human resources. I think a lot of small business owners don't realize the importance when you start scaling and growing and you're adding employees, how important it is that you've got employee handbooks and so many other things in place that are just overlooked. I mean, I know a lot of solopreneurs overlook simple things like, why do I need a tax ID number? Or why do I need, an LLC? Why do I need to file that? And there's so many things that they overlook. And today we're going to dive into the importance of the HR presence because we have Amber Trail here. And Amber Trail is the CEO and founder of the HR Trail. And I'm excited to jump into everything she has to share with us today. But before we do, I must thank the sponsor of today's show, Alley Spine Center in Scottsdale, Arizona. And what sets their office apart from other offices is their focus and expertise in treating degenerative spinal conditions, including disc disease, bulging herniated discs, spinal stenosis, neuropathy, sciatica, pain, tingling, and numbness in the arms and hands, legs and feet, as well as severe and chronic neck pain and headaches. And I'll tell you, I had chronic neck pain from an accident, and I went there for corrective care, and I went through a whole series of about 28 visits, and I feel great. So they specialize in corrective care, not just the treatment of symptoms with physical medicine modalities. And in many cases, pre and post images are used to help determine the structural improvement of the spine. So if you are having any pain or looking to really get rid of that and get back to feeling amazing like I do today, you can reach Ally Spine Center at 480-809-4700 and be sure to visit them at allyspinecenter.com. And even though they're located in Arizona, the owner, Chris and Allie, I'll tell you that they know they can refer you to anyone throughout the United States that does what they do in corrective care. And I think that's the most important part to remember here is that if you're in a different state and you're struggling from any of this, sometimes you need someone to get in there and do corrective care and not just go to the chiropractor and keep getting treated, but really nothing's happening. So that's what I did for years. Finally got serious, and now I feel fantastic. So, all right, let's get to Amber. Amber Trail is the founder, consultant, and coach for her human resources consulting and coaching firm, the HR Trail. Amber is also a 3-time international best-selling author, international speaker, a certified life coach, a certified women empowerment coach, and a certified goal success coach. So she brings all of that to the table, as well as the face behind the HR Without Borders podcast. With over 15 years of progressive corporate HR experience and a master's degree in business administration, Amber brings her passion and knowledge of human resources to businesses and HR professionals worldwide. Amber resides in Pennsylvania with her husband, and most important job is to be the mom of her 3 boys. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I love behind her. She has a sign that says, behind every successful woman is herself, which I think she tends to forget. Right.
Yes.
We might have some help along the way. You might have some coaches and, mastermind groups and the LEAP community, and you might have all of these behind you, but we always seem to forget the success really has so much to do with ourselves. Right. And so Amber, I'm excited to jump in today and talk all about HR because I see you as like a fractional HR company for a lot of startups. So talk to us about that. When did you start the HR Trail, and what was the importance behind that, and why you wanted to I guess the market was really missing what you had created, right?
Yeah. So when I was in my last corporate role, they were downsizing tremendously. And I'm not someone who can sit still. So we went from 125 employees down to 15. And
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. So I actually walked back to the owner's office and I was like, look, you're paying me to do a lot of things that I don't even have a clue what I'm doing. This is not HR. I'm staining furniture for you guys. Like I'm doing random stuff to stay busy. And he said, you are the first person in my entire career that would have ever come and said, I'm bored, give me something to do.
Yeah.
So he's like, have you ever thought about small business consulting? He's like, there are a ton of businesses around the area that are small enough. They don't have the funds for a full-time or even a part-time HR person. So have you thought about that? And I was like, no. So he actually helped me get my consulting company started. Yeah. So over the years, like I've grown. Initially, it was only like in the area I was at. But as soon as COVID hit, it kind of boom, we went virtual and I now can work with people all over the world. I try to stay within the US, specifically with the laws and compliance, because that's my know-how. But there are a lot of HR professionals that I've also worked with overseas, and it's just amazing because HR fundamentally globally is the same, that we have a lot of the same concerns and issues. And so it's just kind of grown and morphed from there. And the small business owners are the ones who I love to support because they're usually trying to do it all. They're trying to do their HR, their marketing, their accounting, they do and the actual work. And when we take a step back and we bring in someone like myself who can help create an HR department and have it set up for success, not necessarily with an actual person in it, but I'm there as a backup, it really helps for retention and recruitment and engagement with the employees. So it makes them more successful.
Yeah. And I think that was really the first time you took a leap of faith of doing something a little bit different. And you're a success story coming out of the pandemic because not all companies are success stories, right? And
right.
What was it like for you through that period of time, 2020, 2021? We're really, 2020, they were great years for me. But, for you, what were those 2 years like?
The initial part of COVID, when everything kind of shut down, was very scary because, like you said, I have 3 boys. So 2 where I was now homeschooling, and 1 daycare was shut down. So I had a toddler that I had to watch as well, on top of trying to build my business. And when I wasn't able to go visit my, potential clients or current clients, I was like, okay, the kids are using, Google Meet or Zoom for school. I'm going to use Zoom. So I quickly just transitioned everything over. Yeah. And it actually helped me realize that I can create my own schedule. I don't have to be on the road all the time. I don't have to, spend a ton of money at coffee shops and, eating out to lunch with potential clients, that I can just pick up the phone or I can do a Zoom, and it's so much easier and it works around my schedule. So at first it was scary and hard, but then, that transition just made it super easy. And I was able to work more in the evening when my husband was home so he could watch the kids. So it was chaotic and crazy, but it really helped transition my business to that leap to success.
Yeah. And I love that because it gives us pause. Sometimes things like that give us pause to step back and say, okay, how do I want to run? How would I like my schedule to be? And what is sustainable for me? Because when I started a Lead Up for Women back in 2019, I was driving into a studio for a radio show, and I was flying all over the country to 10 different cities and 10 different states every month. And that was costing me a lot of money. I was running these luncheons where women would come in person and we would do, some panels. And I just thought, this isn't sustainable. For $75 luncheon ticket that someone's paying, I'm spending way more in travel. It wasn't sustainable, just like you were saying. Right. And so, in corporate America, I had been working with clients for over 20 years using Zoom and GoToMeeting and all of those other. So I was like, that's just the way I'm going to do it from now on. And we're going to move everything online. And I did that about 4 to 5 months before COVID hit. I moved everything online. So I was already prepped and ready. when it happened, thankfully,
Mhm.
because so many people weren't, but it does allow you that freedom to create your own schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the best thing, especially, to those moms that, especially the moms, because I know we have mom guilt whenever, we're working, but we're trying to have that flexibility. It really was tremendous change for me because now I wasn't gone all the time. I was actually able to be there with them and have the flexibility of my own schedule.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it totally makes sense. So talk to me about HR and the power of HR presence. Let's tell our listeners why is it so important? You've got a company, in the LEAP community alone, we have a lot of women that are starting to grow at scale. Their businesses are getting larger. It's not that you have to be a big corporation already to work with someone like your company, Amber, and the HR Trail. These can be solopreneurs that are getting ready to bring on their first employee, their second employee. They need simple things like employee handbooks and certain documents in place. So let's talk about the power of why this is overlooked, it seems like a lot from businesses, but can be the most powerful department that you start with. Most people start with marketing and IT.
Yeah, they do. And, the sad part is a lot of times I won't get clients until they've received a lawsuit or they have an unemployment claim or they have something go wrong and they need to terminate an employee and they have no idea what to do. So a lot of times they don't realize what an HR presence could have done to prevent that. And even if you have one employee, you still need to have that HR presence. And that really includes like setting up, company handbook. First thing I always ask is, do you have a company handbook? You still need one, whether you have one or thousands of employees, because that sets the tone and the culture of your company. And then do you do performance reviews? You should, because people always want to know what they're doing. How am I doing? Am I going to get a raise? They want to know what goals to set. So a lot of that is overlooked, but, performance evaluations, the handbook, new hire information, onboarding, offboarding, terminations, all of that falls under HR. And you don't necessarily need a dedicated HR person in that position. But if you're going to have several people do those duties, they need to know what they're doing. They need to know what interview questions they can ask, what they cannot ask. A lot of that can get you in some big trouble. And it's having that presence and getting your department set up. And if you're starting out, that is fantastic to have it all set up, ready to go. Now, a lot of my clients do not have it that way. They're already, 25, 45 employees in, and we have to kind of backtrack and we get them set up for success. And that really helps employees. And plus, it relieves a lot of headaches for the business owners. Because now they're like, I don't know, because someone might have 2 weeks of paid time off and someone might have 3. Well, if they find out, you're not going to have some happy employees. Right. So the consistency of those policies is really important to have.
So from what I hear you saying, is it's really important if you're a small business and you're looking at just hiring your first employee because you're like, I'm growing, I need to add my first employee. This is a good time for them to meet with you to say, okay, I'm getting ready to hire my first employee. Now I need to kind of get this HR stuff going. I need you to help me with interview questions. I need you to help me with getting the employee handbooks and putting this all together. That's a good time to meet with you to get it started from the get-go. And then you become like their kind of virtual HR department. And then who knows if they ever grow into the size where they need an in-house HR person. Maybe do you just remain that kind of virtual HR for them ongoing, or is the goal for them to continue growing for you to train then? Or do you do that? Train someone internally?
Well, it depends. It really depends on how many employees they currently have. So I typically say if you have 50 or more employees, you're going to want to hire a part-time HR person because, that's really when you need someone there all the time. If you have less than 50 employees, you're not going to need me as much. But we've already got everything set up and I'm here to help you and answer questions. And recruitment is another big thing that a lot of, they're like, I just need help with recruitment. So I do one-offs too, recruitments, onboarding, different things like that. But I love it when they get their whole HR department set up And then I've actually, for clients, gotten everything set up. They grew tremendously and then hired a full-time HR professional to fill that role.
Yeah.
And I'm still there as a consultant. If they have questions or concerns, then that HR person can come to me and ask.
Yeah, that's important. Absolutely. Yeah. So tell me, why did you go through all of your certifications? You're a certified life coach, a certified women empowerment coach, a certified goal success coach, and you also have a master's degree in BA. So what were the certifications in coaching? Where do you feel that plugs some holes for you that you might have been missing?
So the first thing that I got was my SHRM certification. It makes you a SHRM certified HR professional. And honestly, if you're in the HR field and you don't have some type of official certification, you're not going to be taken seriously, unfortunately. You may have years and years of knowledge, but sometimes they don't look at that. And that's sad because there's tons of knowledge and wealth out there. But when it comes to, I got my master's, but then I noticed a huge need for the small business owners to really feel empowered. I was doing a lot of coaching more than I was consulting. And it was fun, but I realized, if I want to do this more, I need to find out what are some good resources, some good tips. So that's when I went and got all of those certifications because I wanted to be able to empower them more than I already was.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's great. So you really bring the full package to everybody. And again, talk to us about your podcast, because you said that you're the face behind the HR Without Borders. When did you start the podcast? What is this podcast about, so that we can
I started the podcast. Download? Yeah, I started the podcast about, 2 years ago. I did have to take a break because I was doing it once a week, which became a little much. And then, with COVID, still kids home, all that crazy stuff. So I have started it back up in January with once a month. And it's right now just hosted on my LinkedIn page. It's HR Without Borders podcast page. And I also have it on my YouTube channel at the HR Trail. But it really focuses on some different benefits that a small business owner can get, some free tips and free resources, and just some extra do's and don'ts that they're more informed. And I have some on my website from previously when I was doing them once a week, that I had guest experts come and talk about payroll and benefits and, just compliance, things like that, so that we can empower our business owners as much as possible. So they just have at least the beginnings of what can set them up for success.
Absolutely. It's so important to have the knowledge. And I think that's where business owners get held up. I don't know what happens where once you start a business, you think you're just supposed to know everything, but we don't, right? You know what you know. So if your job or your passion is printing and, embroidering, and that's what you do, how do you know how to take care of tax codes and employee handbooks? And, a lot of those individual owners don't even know how to do their own QuickBooks or finances, and what can I write off, and what are tax laws, and I could go on and on and on, right? So I do think it's important for us to involve experts like yourself, because like you said, most of the time people will come to you when there's a lawsuit in place, when something's going on that is going bad. Right. And that's when they reach out to an expert. And that should never be the time, right? To be reaching out to that expert. If you're going to do something, you should, I always say, talk with the attorney prior to you doing something. That way, if something goes wrong, you're not reaching out to an attorney because, you're in jail or something.
Right. But and that's just like, I would never I try to do my own taxes. I try to do my own accounting, and I am not an accounting person. And the second I realized that it's less expensive for me to hire someone else to do it, then my time is freed up for revenue producing time. And so it's well worth it to hand it over to the experts. Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we talk about that a lot here on the podcast. And it's about investing. It's not about it being an expense. It was never an expense for me, for any experts that I have that do so much work behind the scenes for me. It's an investment And it never feels like I really have to pay for that, I guess, investment, because I'm doing the revenue producing items that I believe are bringing in the money that pay for that. And so if I had to spend time doing that, it's taking away from producing the revenue. So it's costing me money. Then it becomes an expense. Right. For us. And so that's just a mind shift for someone to think about if you're running a business, and that someone might be sitting there going, oh my gosh, I never looked at it that way. And you'll never look at it the same. I promise you now that I've mentioned it, but that's just the way it works. You've got to look at things as an investment. Having the power of an HR presence in your company is going to save you so many mistakes, so much time, so much money. Oh my gosh. Because if Amber already has 15 to 20 years experience in HR, she's going to be able to coach you through a lot of the pieces that are mistakes that other companies have already made or that she's made, and know now how you need to do it to avoid some of those bigger mistakes. Right? Wouldn't you say that?
Yes, exactly. And the biggest thing that I see happen a lot is when they are, I've been through EEOC lawsuits, I've been through unemployment, and that was me working in the corporate world. So I've been through a lot of those ADA, and then audits from Homeland Security. I've been through all of that in those 15 years. And the funny thing is when I have a potential client say to me, well, I've been doing it this way for this long, I'm going to be fine. And I'm like, okay, can I explain to you a little bit about what happens if you get a letter in the mail? So I don't want to put fear into them, but I also have to, because I want them to understand that you're not exempt from this because you're a small business owner. Anything could happen. And would you rather spend the fraction amount of money, letting me help you get it set up, or spend thousands upon thousands later on in court costs and court fees? I don't think you want to go that route.
Yeah. My tax consultant explains it to me like this. So picture it like this. You're driving 95 in a 65 right now. So how long can you do that before you get caught? And that's what he says to me when I don't understand, like, I'm not really sure I understand why I need to be doing this with my taxes, or why I need to be, based on the way that our structure is for my business, why I have to give myself a larger paycheck. Like, why do I have to pay myself more? And he's like, because technically you're driving 95 in a 65. So he says it to me in a way I can understand it. Because obviously, if I'm speeding for that long, eventually someone's going to notice. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, I didn't even realize that was a problem. Like, I didn't even know that the IRS would have an issue with that, or the way that my structure's set up, because that's what he knows. That's what his expertise is. So what we're talking about here today is your expertise is human resources and employees and benefits, and how you set all of that up, and how you have an employee sign. And, I did a workshop yesterday. I do a lot of workshops locally and around the nation on servant leadership. And we talked a lot about performance reviews. There's all different types of performance reviews out there, but I love the way that you said it, Amber, because you said, for them to set goals, for them to know what is it that you're looking for them to achieve in that year, not necessarily smacking them on the hand because they're, not good at communicating, but really having that conversation with them so that they have the opportunity to say what it is that they want and what they're looking for in your company. And that's longevity and loyalty of an employee. You don't want an employee turnover month after month after month. That's so expensive for any company. You will go bankrupt trying to grow a company if you can't keep employees.
Exactly.
Hands down. Yeah.
And turnover costs are one of the most expensive things in a small business, because you're not, when we think about it, you're like, oh, well, I'm just getting rid of them. Well, you're spending money on recruitment because you're spending money on time finding someone new. Then you have to train someone on all of those things. Yeah. So there's so many other things that go into those turnover costs that people just really don't think about, and you could have prevented a lot of that turnover just by, having things set up and in place.
That's what I see HR as. It's like the little prevention side, side department. It's all prevention, And that's what HR is. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And I know my husband and I, with our businesses, I've been referring Amber to everybody I know, but I know we're going to be utilizing her very soon with our businesses that are growing and bringing on, because we have a lot of contractors that work for us, but now some of the other companies are going to require employees. So I've already told Amber, like, I'm going to be calling you because I'll be needing you to help us out. I trust Amber. And if I trust Amber, you should too. I refer her to everybody I know. Even if you're not the person that needs to work with Amber, but somebody who's growing a business and has employees and doesn't have an HR department, now is the time to introduce them to HR and Amber Trail. So tell us how we find you and what's available for the listeners today.
Absolutely. The best place to go is my website, which is thehrtrail.com. It has all the services listed on there, and you can contact me directly on that. I'm also very active in LinkedIn. So, it's just /Amber Trail. And then the last piece is my email. I am very responsive, probably to, it's a bad thing sometimes, but it's amber@thehrtrail.com. And, even if it's just, Amber, I have a quick question, we can kind of talk through a lot of things. And that's how I can help serve a lot of business owners, because I'm a business owner. So I know what they're going through, and I know it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And running a business, there's just so many hats that we wear. And again, prevention. It's why you work with, tax consultant to prevent the IRS coming at you and auditing you, because that they're following within the laws of how you need to file. I honestly, if I had to do my own taxes, it would take me, just gathering the information to get it to my tax person takes my husband and I months. We haven't even filed this year because we always file late and get, an extension, and file sometime in the summer, before the cutoff, I think, is by October 1st or September 30th or something. So yeah, I understand. The power of HR is so important. And for every single one of you listening today, it's just part of business. It really is. And so be smart. Do it the smart way. Don't do it the hard way. Don't wait until you have a lawsuit coming at you. Don't wait until you have employees that are unhappy or disgruntled, or you're trying to figure out how to fire somebody, or one of your employees is trying to sue you. Don't wait for that. And if you think you don't have the money to bring on an HR department, that's crazy, because this is the way to do it, to bring it on virtually the way that Amber has it, instead of bringing on a full-time HR employee that's trying to build it all, just one individual by themselves, when you can get with Amber's team. So right. Amber, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
You're phenomenal. So happy we met several years ago and are back together, and that you're part of the LEAP community. For all of you that haven't checked that out yet, at colleenbiggs.net/community, this is where you can build your business with other like-minded business owners and get the visibility that you need to grow your brand. And I know that Amber, already just being part of the community, has built her network and built her net worth through meeting so many people within the community and referrals that she's received. So thank you again, Amber, for being with us. And for all of you out there, remember, you're the only you that's ever been. You're the only you that will ever be. So if this is your baby and your company that you're building, build it right. Do it the right way the first time around. Make sure that you are right with the IRS. Make sure you've got a CPA in place. Make sure you've got a bookkeeper in place. Make sure you've got an HR, virtual department in place. Make sure you have all of these things lined up, so that when you're scaling and growing, everything is set up with a strong foundation, because a house built on cards will fall. It just will fall. It's like you're playing Jenga right now, is what they're doing, right? They're playing Jenga, and it's eventually going to fall. I tell everyone that.
Nobody likes that.
No one likes to play Jenga. I get so nervous. I get anxiety when it gets toward the end of Jenga, It's just tipping and you're waiting for it to fall. So build it on a strong foundation, and Amber Trail can help you with that at thehrtrail.com. All right, Amber, thanks for being with us today. Thank you all for being loyal listeners. We love you so much. And until next time, be you and be strong. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of self-discovery, where you learned the tools to create a life by design. Remember, you are the only you there is, and you are the only you that will ever be. Be you and be strong, because you are brilliant, and the world needs you at your best. We cannot wait for you to join us again next time.